insight into what exactly he's referring to.
The guessing game continues. What evidence could be behind President Trump's allegations against former President Obama? But the investigation will go on.
I've seen no evidence of the allegations we've seen. That doesn't mean that none of these things happened.
Tonight, I take my questions directly to the White House. I'll speak live exclusively with Counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway, about the investigation, the allegations, and where we go from here. It's a Justice Primetime exclusive, and we're starting now. Breaking tonight, the White House offers a statement on the president's explosive allegations that seem to catch everyone, including the intelligence community and the president's inner circle, off guard. Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. Counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway, is standing by live to answer my questions about those shocking allegations from the president and the investigation into those claims. But first, let's get caught up. After staying quiet all day yesterday, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer released a series of tweets today in response to President Trump's tweets from yesterday morning accusing President Obama of wiretapping him and his campaign in 2016. Spicer said in part, quote, President Trump is requesting that as part of their investigation into Russian activity, the Congressional Intelligence Committees exercise their oversight authority to determine whether executive branch investigative powers were abused in 2016. Spicer also said the White House and President won't comment again on this until the investigation happens. Meantime, another bombshell report out tonight that FBI Director James Comey is now front and center in all of this. Leland Vittert is standing by at the White House now with more. Leland?
Good evening, Judge. And this really sets up a potential Monday showdown between the FBI director and the president. And, of course, the FBI director serves at the pleasure of the president. Over the weekend, James Comey reportedly went to the Justice Department and said he wanted to issue a statement vehemently denying Mr. Trump's accusation, saying he felt as though the president had accused the FBI of committing a crime, which it did not commit. Now, Fox News cannot independently corroborate that report that the New York Times had a couple of hours ago. We can tell you that law enforcement officials tell us that the most senior members of federal law enforcement were, quote, caught completely off guard by the president's tweets on Saturday morning, adding those officials had no idea what the president was talking about. The White House also not commenting, not offering any evidence in terms of support for what the president had to say on Saturday morning, nor have they offered any clarifications to the accusations. They have essentially passed the baton on to Congress. The House Intelligence Community is now going to pick up this as part of their investigation into the Russian involvement in the U.S. election. Still, though, a lot of unanswered questions, including whether Mr. Trump's senior staff that was caught completely off guard themselves were told by these Saturday morning tweets believes what the president had to say is true. Take a listen to the Deputy White House Press Secretary this morning.
The President of the United States is accusing the former president of wiretapping him.
I think that this is, again, something that if this happened, Martha,
If.
I agree.
Why is the president saying it did happen?
Look, I think he is going off of information that he's seen that has led him to believe that this is a very real potential.
Now, the president's information for the Saturday morning tweets appears to have come from a Breitbart article that was published late Thursday night, early Friday morning. That article was based off of a number of other reports, all using unnamed sources regarding the possibility of a warrant being issued by the Federal National Security Court, Federal Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, as it relates to possible involvement by Trump associates with Russian foreign agents. Fox News can't corroborate those reports independently either. President Obama has vehemently denied that anyone inside the White House or he personally ordered surveillance on Mr. Trump or his campaign. Democrats seem to think what is now being called Towergate is going to be a win-win for him.
The president's in trouble if he falsely spread this kind of misinformation. That is so wrong. It's beneath the dignity of the presidency. On the other hand, if it's true, it's even worse for the president, because that means that a federal judge, independently elected, has found probable cause that the president or people on his staff have had probable cause to have broken the law or to have interacted with a foreign agent. Now, that's serious stuff. So either way, the president makes it worse with these tweets.
Now, this is not the first time the president and the White House have demanded an investigation into something that started with the president's tweets. You might remember, Judge, a little more than a month ago, the president had those tweets about 3 million illegal people voting in the election. They then demanded a large investigation into that. So far, we haven't heard anything back on that. And now we wait for the sun to come up and the potential showdown between the FBI director and his president.
Leland, thank you very much. And meantime tonight, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, the man who held that job at the time of this wiretapping, as alleged by President Trump, spoke about the accusation today on NBC's Meet the Press.
I was just going to say, if the FBI, for instance, had a FISA court order of some sort for a surveillance, would that be information you would know or not know?
Yes.
You would be told this.
I would know that.
If there was a FISA court order
Yes.
on something like this.
Something like this, absolutely.
And at this point, you can't confirm or deny whether that exists?
I can deny it.
There is no FISA court order?
Not to my knowledge.
Of anything at Trump Tower?
No.
And joining me now from Washington in a primetime Justice exclusive, counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway. Good evening, Kellyanne. Does President Trump already know the answer to the question as to whether or not he was wiretapped?
He may. As Senator Mark Warner of Virginia said on a different show today, Janine, the president receives different intelligence than everyone else. But the real point here is what the president has said and what Sean Spicer and Sarah Sanders, my colleague, said earlier today, which is there are a couple things going on here. One is we know there were politically motivated stories and investigations all through the campaign season, and those come from credible news sources, and the president wants to get to the bottom of that. I mean, what is everybody afraid of? They want to investigate everything, even the attenuated stuff, and yet they're afraid of connecting here what the president has asked for, which is basically, if you're going to investigate, continue to investigate Russia, why not add to that an investigation of these allegations? And Janine, are we saying that there aren't leaks? I mean, the real issue here is one that House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes raised again today, which is leaks. These bureaucratic leaks are hurting all of us. These are national security intelligence leaks from people held over from another administration, and it has to stop. This is serious stuff.
But Kellyanne, if indeed the president's accusation is based upon open source reporting, wouldn't he, and James Clapper, who would definitely know, because if there were a FISA warrant, DNI, FBI, and DOJ would know. He is saying that there wasn't. If the president knows this, he is in a position to declassify any warrant or wiretap order were one to exist. Why doesn't he just do that and prove it? Is he shifting the burden of proof to the Democrats?
No, he's not. But two things on that. The Democrats and some of their allies in other industries love to shout Russia, Russia. Imagine if every time they shouted Russia, they would shout leaks instead. And that's something that we actually know is happening and know that there's corroborating evidence. And if we got to the bottom of that, then we all may be safer. Secondly, Mr. Clapper did not, he did not discount the possibility that this may have come from somewhere else in the administration that's not under his purview. He said very clearly to Chuck Todd that he's talking about the agencies that are under his purview, that he would have known that and he can deny that. That's a very, listen, it's a very big administration. It's a big government filled with people.
Kellyanne, we're both lawyers. He's saying it could be Title III, and if it's Title III, that it would be a local or state prosecutor in a criminal case. He's talking about federal foreign intelligence. So it's even worse if it's a federal criminal
case. But my only point is, Janine, I'm not crediting it one way or the other. My only point is that Mr. Clapper, in issuing a denial about a specific question that Chuck Todd asked him, also later in the interview left open the possibility that it could come from somewhere else. It's the same thing that happened yesterday when President Obama's spokesman said the cardinal rule was that President Obama and the White House officials never interfered in a Department of Justice investigation. Fine. But he did leap over the possibility that other pieces of the administration may be the source of this, may be leakers.
All right, let me ask you this then. Is it appropriate for a president to accuse another president based on open source reporting or with an open-ended question? And I guess even more important, if the head of the FBI is saying and pushing back and asking DOJ to push back on this, are we now facing a constitutional crisis before the first 100 days are over?
No, I wouldn't say that. If Mr. Comey has something he'd like to say, I'm sure we're all willing to hear it. All I saw was a published news report. I didn't see a statement from him. And so I don't know what Mr. Comey knows, but we're all being
He would know. He would know either way, because if it were a Title III wiretap, he would know it because that's his criminal division. Or if it were an FBI, the counterintelligence, counterterrorism, he would know that too under FISA. He knows, and if he's pushing back, we've got a real problem between the head of the FBI and the president, the executive branch.
Well, and if he knows, of course, he can issue a statement. And we know he's not shy. So the other thing, the other question you asked, I just want to make the point too that we have a double standard here on anonymous sources. You know, the media are so quick to rely upon them for everything, including these leaks, any type of attenuated Russia connection. Anonymous sources, when it's negative and derogatory toward this president. If it's positive and exonerating, they don't want to hear about it. Somehow we need to have everything laid out, all types of evidence presented. The president made very clear, as did Sean Spicer, our press secretary, that we like this to be included in the president would like it to be included in the investigation, and that we'll have no further comment until that oversight is completed. The other point I'd like to make is, you know, everybody loves to run around and say, Janine, Judge Janine, that oh, you know, the president had this wonderful speech on Tuesday night. He was heralded from all political corners. It was very unifying. People felt great. You saw the poll numbers afterwards.
They were great.
And yet everybody says, and look at this, now we can't talk about it anymore. Really, why not? Look at the Fox News polls and every other network's polls. What do those say are important to Americans? What we're discussing now, what everybody's obsessed with this whole week, or what the president talked about, that there is that action is a necessity, not a choice. We will have health care reform. We will have new domestic policies coming out this week, perhaps.
Thank you.
We will, in fact, get a handle on this opiate abuse that the president laid out so beautifully the other night. He's got a lot to do, and he's going to do it.
Thanks, Kellyanne, for being with us. And here with reaction, former Republican presidential candidate, Fox News contributor Herman Cain. All right, Herman, so in addition to Jim Comey and the FBI, and it seems that he's kind of wiggled his way into the middle of things, you are someone who ran for president and are somewhat familiar with dirty tricks. What's your take on all of this?
My take is that all of these voices that are coming out on this issue are all speculative. Judge,
including the president?
My advice,
including the president?
That could be speculative also, but Judge, we don't know what he knows. So
well, why doesn't he declassify what he knows? Because he's in a position to do it.
Judge, I don't know the answer to that. Here's the point I'm trying to make. There are so many unknowns and so much speculation. Everybody simply needs to take a chill pill and let the investigation take place. The White House is not objecting to the investigation. Let it take place. The media has been just absorbed with this whole Russia connection. Why not throw this in there? That's all I'm saying. So at this point, there is too much speculation from too many people. Everybody needs to take a chill pill and let the investigation go forward. Now, allow me to say this, Judge.
Go ahead.
I'll say this. Where is the story about an organization called We Will Replace You that has threatened members of Congress, Democrats, that if they vote for anything Trump, they're going to primary them. They're going to get a candidate to run against them. This is an outright threat.
But that's politics.
That's not
what
politics,
we're talking
Judge.
about now. Look. Every party wants their candidate and their people to run to work on behalf of their party. But this is the important thing. You believe that President Obama is capable of having sought a wiretap. And look, let's not tiptoe around. Everybody knows the president can actually order it. He sends his people in front of a judge to get a warrant to get it. But you think that Obama would have been capable of doing that to Trump?
I'm saying I don't know, Judge. And I'm not going to be one of those voices. Yes, he's capable, but I'm not going to speculate on that. This is what everybody's doing. Even everybody is speculating based upon what they think they know and what they think they don't know. I'm saying this is just adding fuel to the frenzy. Let the investigation take place, then we will know what the facts are. We don't know the facts right now.
All right. Thank you, Herman Cain.
You're welcome.
And former Trump campaign national spokesperson Katrina Pearson is still on deck tonight. Plus, street justice. And next, you're going to meet a woman who may change your thinking on this whole story. FISA applications, wiretapping. She's a former Department of Justice national security lawyer, and she actually did these FISA application warrants for a living. You need to hear her. Justice rolls on. Congressman Trey Gowdy, thanks so much for being with us. It has been a fascinating 29 days since he was inaugurated. We haven't even made a month yet. And we had one of the most interesting press conferences that I know I've ever seen a president conduct. What did you think of President Trump's press conference this week?
Well, I didn't watch it live. I was traveling, but I watched a lot of snippets of it. He's a different kind of leader. He's never been in the House. He's never been in the Senate. If he doesn't like the question, he's going to be pretty forceful in how he describes his displeasure. It's fascinating for those of us who have been brought up to interact with the media a certain way, to watch the leader of the free world interact with the media in a very different way. I think most folks in the real world out in the country appreciate someone who stands up for himself as much as this president does.
And I agree with you. I think the people that voted for Donald Trump like this. And I think it's curious, or it's interesting, that he is now going back to the people in Orlando and North Carolina, or is it South Carolina?
South Carolina.
South Carolina, which is your neck of the woods. And, you know, he's done a lot in these 29 days that people are not giving him credit for, including, you know, some things that you and I, where our hearts are in terms of law enforcement. The president has taken some action in terms of an executive action to protect law enforcement and take action against drug cartels, to begin the process clearly of the border wall, the executive action on immigration. And I want to talk about that just for a moment, immigration. I mean, clearly you've got the Ninth Circuit. I think you knew, I knew, most people knew there was no question that that the stay would have been upheld. And the president has indicated there will be a new executive order. What does he need to do to make sure that there's no temporary ban on that, temporary stay on the ban?
I think he has to have an evidentiary basis as it relates to each category of immigrant or non-immigrant. If you are in Yemen and you simply want to go to Disney World and you've never visited the United States before, you have no property rights. You're not entitled to any due process considerations. On the other hand, if you are a legal permanent resident or you do have a valid visa and you've traveled and you have an apartment lease, or your kids are in school, or you have pets, that's a different analysis than someone who's never been here. So I think if I were giving him legal advice, I would say that we need to tighten up the evidentiary basis for each category. But just keep in mind, the Ninth Circuit has a very different view of its role in overlooking national security matters than any other circuit would. The Ninth Circuit is a circuit in and of itself, so it should surprise no one that they took the action that they did. He doesn't need to appeal it. He just needs to tighten up the different categories and provide an evidentiary basis for the decisions that he's made.
But in light of what you just said, Trey, what do you say to people who say there are three branches of government and each is a check on the other? You know, as you've said, an unelected federal judge, ruling on national security issues.
Well, the chief executive has incredibly broad national security powers. They're not limitless. They're not. He can't violate a treaty that we've signed. There are limits. But on the other hand, federal judges are among the worst situated people to overlook battle plans or describe whether or not this is the right target in Yemen or this is the right target in Yemen. That's not their job. They're not qualified to do it. One of the reasons I like the new Supreme Court nominee as much as I do is he is what I call a judicial minimalist. He has humility. He understands the branch integrity and branch equilibrium and what the role of each branch is. So the commander-in-chief is not limitless in his or her power, but the judicial branch does not get to second-guess every national security decision that a president makes.
And talking about Gorsuch, the president's nominee for the Supreme Court, do you think that the president will have to, or Mitch McConnell will have to go nuclear to get him on the Supreme Court?
If he does, Judge, then you need no further evidence of the Democrats' plan for the next 2 to 4 years, which is simply resist everything. Resist Mother's Day, resist Christmas, resist impeccably qualified jurists to sit on the highest court. I mean, I think about the Republicans, including some from my own state, who supported Democrat presidents when they got to pick their Supreme Court justices. And then you have Obama and Biden and Clinton, who, if my memory serves me correctly, didn't vote for Alito or Roberts. So this notion that we're going to oppose Gorsuch simply because he's a Republican nominee, he is impeccably qualified. Even progressive judges have respect for him, and yet there are still Democrat senators that would not vote for Jesus or Solomon or Moses if they were up for the Supreme Court.
And I think, unfortunately, that's what this president is going to be facing for the next 4 or 8 years. All right, Congressman, got to go. Thanks so much for being with us.
Yes, ma'am.